Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the UnCalled Foursome. If you are wanting to see the stupidity become crushed beyond all recognition, you've come to the right place. We have a great show planned for you tonight, and I want to thank everyone for coming on, including Crafty Keela and Vegan-Atheist when she comes on. I am so excited. We have a great show for you tonight. So how is everything going, everyone? How are you doing, Glober Mommy?
I am doing good. Just plucking along, making videos. And doing this, of course.
So have you seen any new goofiness on?
A couple of things. Just the one I did last week. But that was kind of goofy I think. But yeah.
There you go.
Just the conspiracy-minded people,
Exactly. They're gonna find conspiracy in everything. It seems like.
Mm-hmm. That's it. So.
So how about you, Sci?
Well, howdy, y'all. I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, definitely, excited to have our guests here tonight. We have Crafty Keela, and it looks like Vegan-Atheist is running a little bit behind. If she's able to get here, that would be great. Not a whole lot new going on in my world. I did just finish recording a video yesterday of some of the most dumb comments I found throughout different social media platforms. So that's going to be a funny video, at least. Yeah, there's quite a bit of stupid out there, believe it or not,
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah, as hard as that may be to believe, there is a lot of stupid on the internet. But yeah, that's about it for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm shocked at how much silliness there is on the internet. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's like all the comments that came out just as soon as that rocket launched yesterday.
Oh, man.
How everything was CGI. It was
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. And tonight we have our very own favorite Crafty Keela on. How are you?
Hey, yeah, I'm good, ladies. How's it going?
Good, thank you. And you?
Grand. I had a really, really good show today. I had a live stream there earlier. Still working on the Challenging Conspiracy, so that'll be out next week. And my 1K special is coming up on Thursday. So I'm so excited. If you want to see the best of the best content creators just having a laugh and ripping the piss, that's the place to be on Thursday night, 8 p.m. on British Standard Time. So yeah, please come along.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yes.
Awesome.
Oh, the Shills have to be there. The Shills have to
Yes.
be there.
Absolutely. So we can have a lot of fun with that. That's going to be so great. So how about you? How are you doing tonight?
Ooh.
Boo is working hard in the background.
I'm sorry, did you say me? Okay, I'm
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Yes.
I'm a little confused here. Okay. I am doing fine. Thank you for asking. I'm a little bit concerned with tonight's subject matter, though. It seems kind of silly thing to focus on for Christians, It's a little
Yes.
amusing, so I don't know. Does everybody know what tonight's subject is?
Well, why don't you tell everybody what our subject material is for tonight?
We're talking about birth control or issues with birth control, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm
Yes.
much less skeptical that they'll be real.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you a laugh. Birth control here was illegal in Ireland until the 1970s. And in the 1970s, you needed a letter from either the local priest or your husband to get it until like the mid 80s. So I'm looking forward to this.
Okay. Yes.
Ooh, yeah, the rest
struggle
of
is
the
real.
world, The struggle is real.
Wow.
The struggle is very real.
Yes, it is.
Didn't Ireland just get the right for abortion rights as well?
We did. I was very active in that campaign. We got it in a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago now. So yeah, that's very exciting. We had a 35-year ban on abortion, and then
Wow.
yeah, there was a huge movement over the last couple of years. And just on that, actually, in about a month's time, I'll be debating the issue on Kat's and Creaky's new debate show, Agree to Disagree. So that'll be exciting as well.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely
sweet.
awesome.
That'd be nice to watch.
We're the first people to actually gain marriage equality and the right to choose via popular vote. It was 66.6% in favor
Wow.
of repealing the Eighth Amendment. So huge victory.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I think it's yeah, definitely, something to talk about.
Because it is still a big issue all over the world for a lot of
Yes.
women. And so it's
what
very
are
pertinent.
what are our video titles tonight, Boole?
Well, we've got in big bold, all uppercase, birth control and marriage. I don't want to shout. I think that's inappropriate. Christians.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, Christians rethink using birth control, contraceptives. Number three, is birth control a sin? Number four, should Christians use birth control? Number five, the dark truth about contraceptives with Jason Everett. And number six, why contraception is anti-women. Number seven, why I hate birth control! Exclamation.
Oh boy.
Wow.
Ooh.
I like the why birth control is anti-women. I would love to see that one.
Yes. That probably would be a good one to start with.
Well, we can do that. Shall we?
What do you
get
think,
to
ladies?
it?
Okay.
Good to me.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, it never occurred to me to ever question that birth control was a great thing. Like I saw that as when I saw that as, I remember, to quote my former self, saying things like, birth control is the linchpin to a woman's freedom,
Right.
or woman's health. So I was,
Yeah.
very much on that. And I got there not from doing research, really. I mean, it was also never questioned, but I think when you kind of join an ideology, in some ways it comes as a prepackaged whole.
Yeah.
And you kind of accept it. With contraception, I was always sort of, I was never really taught to be critical of it. But abortion, I grew up in a very anti-abortion, pro-life household. And I felt, I sort of was sympathetic with that view very long into my feminist years. And then it switched. And it didn't switch because I did research. It didn't switch because I followed the intellectual arguments. It just switched. And all of a sudden I had a very emotionally intense reaction against pro-lifers.
Why was that?
I
Because as you
think-
say, you didn't follow the thread.
No, I think it's because once you sort of join a group, a kind of an ideological movement, it often it comes as sort of a prepackaged whole. I think we see this a lot in American politics,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, well, you're a liberal. These are the things you believe. These are the
if you
things you should feel
concede-
outraged about.
If you concede any points to the opposition, then you're a traitor. And so you must adopt everything within that
Right.
party.
Right, exactly.
Okay, sorry. First of
That's
all,
fine.
I do want to challenge the idea that she grew up in a pro-life household. No, she grew up in an anti-choice household, because to call them pro-life is to suggest that people who are pro-choice are anti-life, and we're not. The other thing that I wanted to challenge is the idea that if you are liberal at all, you automatically have to conform to every single thing that the liberals say. Okay, so there's different degrees at which people agree with liberalism and conservatism. There's different layers of it. I don't like the idea that if you believe in one thing, you believe in it all. That's just bull.
I do want to just address one thing that I've noticed a couple of questions in the chat. Yes, Ilya is not with us tonight. She's just taking a little bit of time away right now, kind of from just things in general. She's still around and has been talked to, and we're definitely going to continue to talk with her about further plans for the future. But as of tonight, she's just not with us.
So we have our guest on. I'm very excited.
Yay, she's
Yes.
here.
Awesome.
I want to
Hello.
welcome Vegan-Atheist Coral on. I'm so excited for you to be here. Thank you for coming.
Welcome.
Thanks for inviting me, guys.
It's great to have you here with us. How are you doing tonight?
Well, fun times had by all as good as we can with everything that's going on in the world right now,
Absolutely.
Yes.
I agree.
Well, I'm not sure if you got to see, or hear our assortment of videos for the night, but we did start with one. We just got through a little bit of it, so you didn't really miss too much.
Oh, good.
No, we
Probably
haven't
not as much as
started,
you would have
so-
liked to have missed.
Right, I was going to say.
Yes.
So yeah, we're looking at why birth control is anti-woman.
Oh, okay.
Throw you right in the deep end. Right?
Right.
Right from the frying pan into the
Okay.
fire.
Right. I don't even know where to start with that because it's like, how can, no.
My point exactly.
Right. Well, how about we show some more of the video, and you can pause it where you need to, and we can discuss. How about that?
Great.
Okay.
Yeah. So so I was totally fine with contraception. Yeah.
This is important, I think, for us to understand as Catholics who wish to evangelize, to understand where people are coming from. Because I am all of a sudden getting a lot more of a more sort of sympathy for those who tell me how necessary contraception is for the autonomy of women and to attack it. But then you said you didn't really think this through either.
Right.
So did you think, well, when people attack contraception and abortion, even if they say abortion is murder, this is an attack on my autonomy? Did you think of it that way? Like,
Yeah, I think so. I think for one thing, I think feminism takes the supreme value of autonomy for granted. Like that's really a primary value for feminists is autonomy. And so here, let me give an example. And this is there was this Facebook post that I saw. And this was after I became Catholic, when I was beginning to start to entertain questions I'd never allowed myself to entertain before. And it's funny this popped on my feed. This was a friend of a friend, not someone I know personally, but she posted that she was having an abortion, and the post said something like, "This is the second time I've gotten pregnant on long-term hormonal birth control, and I'm not ready to be a mother now, and so I'm having an abortion, and this is why abortion is so necessary. Bodily autonomy. I think that she used the phrase "bodily autonomy exists for a reason." And what struck me when I read that is that, ironically, her very situation demonstrates that bodily autonomy does not exist for women in the same way that it exists for men. Right? So she was using contraception, but she still got pregnant anyway. Right? So who forced that pregnancy on her? It's her own body. Right? So, if a woman engages in sex, even if she tries to prevent a pregnancy from occurring, it can still happen, right? Because, for a woman being sexually active, bodily autonomy doesn't exist in this absolute sense the way it does for men because of our distinctive reproductive roles and those realities, right?
Yeah.
So I think I was beginning to see that that both contraception and abortion are part of this train of thinking that what freedom looks like is for women to become as much like men as possible. So rather than say,
Like, what?
What? Okay. Hang on. Abortion and birth control are about women being like men. Does she mean by having our own health care that we need? Because if she does, then yes, any health care that we need, yeah, we want to kind of be like men. But it's oh my god, there's so much wrong with that sentence.
Yeah, I was gonna say something along the same lines. Like, there's so much wrong with that sentence to begin with. But it's like it's so
How dare we want our own health care?
right. It's just like, come
Yeah.
on. I am a woman. I'm proud to be a woman. I am happy I'm a woman. You know, it's I'm lucky enough to be born as a woman. Not everybody is, and I wouldn't want to take that away from who I am. But that still doesn't mean I want to get pregnant. Like, that doesn't, like, I'm not less of a woman if I'm not an actual, like, if I don't want to birth a child. Like, that doesn't mean automatically I want to be a dude. Like, that's not how it works.
Exactly. But it's one of those things that when women demand or request procedures that are specifically for women, that automatically there's judgment, right? And automatically it's wrong. And how dare we ask for our own healthcare? Oh my God, I agree. There's so much wrong with that sentence.
Majorly wrong.
There was
And
one
another
line
thing-
she's. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead,
That's
Amy. I'm
okay.
sorry. I overtalked you. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, and it's funny, even still today, to this day, I asked about some procedures for health issues, and I was told, "Do you have a husband? He might need to sign off on this." Excuse me.
Yeah.
And I said,
Not his body. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly. No, that's
something if you
not
want to
his.
discuss that with your spouse, or whatever, but it doesn't have to be his, he doesn't have to say okay or not okay to it.
Right. I don't need
Right.
it. It wouldn't have needed his permission
Exactly.
for that procedure.
I mean, it comes back to what I was saying there in the start. In Ireland, it was we didn't have contraception legal in this country until the 1970s, when we had the contraception train, and even with that, up until like the mid 80s, late 80s, you needed a written permission slip from either the parish priest or your husband. Right up until the late 80s. So, I mean, this is the kind of lines that she's going on.
Yeah, I guess it comes from, the religious aspect maybe of the women are property, and that we can't make our own decisions, I guess, or that you have to ask someone's permission to marry someone because, you've got to ask the dad, right? Before you get married, you don't ask the girl first, you ask the dad first, right? So it's like a leftover remnant, it's like a vestigial limb of that background. And like, I remember too, when me and my husband first got married, we knew we did not want to have children at all. And I went to 6, 7 different doctors trying to see if any of them would, what my options were and things like that. I'm like, I don't care. Rip out my uterus. I don't want to deal with it. Like, I don't need it. Like, of course, I was young and I didn't know what my different options are, but I spent time looking and researching and trying to figure it out. And when I finally made my decision of what I wanted to do medically, they all told me no. You will change your mind. That is what they told me. Even though they're not in my mind, they don't know me, they don't know who I am, but they were able to make that decision for me. And so in order to counteract that, we actually went out and my husband went and got a vasectomy. Good for him to be able to do that. But we actually had to make sure that I didn't go to any of his appointments during any of that time. And he went by himself, and then I sat in the waiting room at the very end. And when the doctor came out afterwards, he looked at me, because I have such a young face, especially back then. He's like, "You're the wife?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "If I would have met you, I never would have done it. You're so young." And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Like, no. Like, I mean, we've been married for 16 years now, and in June, it'll be June 4th, it'll be 6 years, or 16 years. And we still are, we're very happy the way we are. And I'm so glad I don't have to have that extra thing of, oh my God, am I pregnant? Do I need to do something? Like 2 forms of birth control at all times? Like, I don't want to have to worry about all that.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you can't do that over here. You can't get a mastectomy. You can't get anything done to permanently prevent you from getting pregnant, because, like you said, the whole subject matter around it is, but you might change your mind, because women can't exist without the opportunity of being mothers. They can't see us as separate from motherhood.
Yeah, it's like, if you're not a mother, then you're not a woman. And I think that is a hard disagree, because, again, you're trying to trap like this entire gender into this category, and we're more than just mothers. We're sisters, we're aunts, we're we're wives, we're girlfriends, we're whatevers. We don't have to necessarily always, we don't have to birth a human in order to take care of other humans.
Or to validate our existence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are some who are not motherly.
Yeah, like me.
I don't know if they call it nurturing gene. I don't know what else to call it, but there's some just like, I like you, vegan coral. I don't want to be a parent, and sometimes when they get pregnant, they're like, I don't want to do this,
Yeah.
and it happens.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean
all
that
of us
you're
are built
any
for
less
one
of a
purpose.
person for making that decision either.
No, you have the right to make that decision. It's your body.
Should we see what our point is, to actually say that it's against womanhood to be
Oh God.
on birth control?
Let's roll the video. Some more video. Bull, did you fall asleep?
Sorry, I got a little distracted by VMix. So
Sorry.
That's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
fault. But
Okay,
yes,
no problem.
Shall we continue?
Let's roll
with
some
this
more
part?
video.
Yes.
Let's continue.
Trying to change certain aspects of society, like having generous maternity leave, for example, like most of the developed world. The solution to the problem of pregnancy has been for abortion, right? To get rid of it, basically. But this, I think, I also overlooked, just especially with hormonal birth control, even just the physiological and emotional effects that women are taking on themselves. And I didn't really realize, because birth control is talked about so positively, like it's nothing, like it's just like eating a piece of candy,
Vitamin,
and then
yeah.
you know, you get to sort of do what you want without consequences. Yeah, vitamin. But it's really significant what's happening, because you're taking synthetic hormones in order to make one of your physiological symptoms intentionally malfunction.
Wow.
Right?
So can you say that again? That was very
Oh,
well
I don't know.
put. Doesn't matter. We can just
Right, yeah,
backspace on YouTube. But
yeah, but you're
That's what you're
intentionally
doing.
causing your body to malfunction.
yeah, and this is when people say, well, what's the difference between birth control? Like you're for like aspirin and Tylenol. But of course, the difference is with Tylenol, I'm taking it so that my body works correctly. I'm like,
Right.
I'm healing an ailment, not shutting down a function of my body.
Exactly, and that's the difference, right? So it's not. And sometimes.
Okay, yeah, please pause. That needs to be
Sorry.
addressed.
Again, like so much misinformation there, because for those who don't realize, birth control is not just about preventing pregnancies. It is about regulating periods. It is about helping your body function in the way that it's supposed to. It is not just about birth control.
Yeah, to highlight that, a very important point. Even though my husband had a vasectomy, I was on birth control for many, many years, and it was to regulate my very painful periods. And there are many people who have various different things, and they need it to, as noted, to regulate periods, to make them so that they're not so painful, to make them so that they last a certain amount of time, things along those lines. And the different hormonal birth controls have different ways of doing it. It's no different than taking medicine if, say, you have depression and you have to take something like, I don't know, Prozac or something. It's not that you're trying you're not, like, it's not forcing it to be broken. You're just making sure that your body is set to a neutral space that is good for you, so that way you can live your life to the fullest.
That's a very good point. And may I add that she brought up that the synthetic hormones have physiological issues as well. So does taking medication. You take a medication every day, it's going to have an effect on your body as well. So it's a matter of what is right for me, and that is between a woman and her doctor. And as long as she is watched and sees her doctor regularly, it's not what people think it is, basically. No, I think we have a super chat.
Aimee, I think Aimee should come in here.
Yeah, sorry, I was just waiting for you to finish, and here comes Maddie. Here he comes. You're fine.
Ow. What is that?
That's a
Yep. Yeah. Kiwis are for 5,000. Korean wants it as a $5. Could you stop sending us emojis?
no.
I mean
No,
pictures.
keep sending us emojis.
No,
I've spoken to
I'm
you about
joking.
What does the sticker say?
Bang.
Bravo.
Bravo.
Ah,
Bravo.
awesome, Matt. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Shall we go back to the stupid?
Let's go back to
yes,
the stupid.
please.
We speed her up because she's starting to annoy me.
Sometimes people misunderstand the Catholic position that you're against birth control because it's artificial.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what about glasses?
Yeah.
But again, like, well, when I have really terrible eyesight, so I'm wearing contacts right now, and that's
enabling my eyeballs to function correctly, right? So it's very different. My views have changed a lot on contraception, and surprisingly, in ways like my views on contraception and abortion now, in many ways are they have theological and philosophical basis, but I also genuinely think that it's bad for women.
Okay, why is contraception bad for women?
Because it creates a culture where women are expected to be sexually available to men, and to act as if they have complete bodily autonomy even while engaging in sex. But when the reality of female biology rears its head, it's women who carry the burden of that.
I see.
So once a woman becomes pregnant, sure, she can get an abortion, but that's not like going and getting a teeth cleaned,
Yeah.
teeth cleaned or something. Like it's,
Do you think that's- do you
she
think-
imposes that bodily autonomy violently on herself. Right? So that's what we're asking women to do. We're saying.
Do you think that's why women want to make it seem, some women who are pro-abortion want to make it seem like it's not a big deal? Because you just said it's not good for women because they're expected to be sexually available, and then the woman says, well, I want to be sexually available, and this affords me that. And you say, yes, but your femininity, the reality of your biology will rear its head, and then you have to do this thing, and that's a big deal. And then they have to say, well, it's not a big deal. It is just like getting my teeth cleaned. It's almost like women have to lie to themselves, and so do men who maybe encourage their partner to have this abortion performed.
Right. So yeah, I think we have sort of embraced this myth that sex doesn't have anything to do with procreation. Right. So I really see.
Pause.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Sex does not necessarily have to have anything to do with creating little humans. You can do it for pleasure.
Oh, not to a Christian. Well, I should say not to a fundamentalist Christian, because there's a difference. And this is the problem, because when people like this open their mouths and they're given a platform, then ordinary people think that this represents Christianity. It does not.
No.
She is a fundamentalist, and let's get that straight. She is a fundamentalist nutter.
And I think also there's a little bit of projection going on here, because if you're looking at their doctrine where women are basically property, they're chattel, or whatever, the same like box as the chattel, then that's literally what some people believe, is that their women should be available for sex at any time. They don't have to wear a condom. They don't have to consider family planning. They just, if they want it, they have it, and they take what they want, whether or not the woman wants it or whether or not she's even awake. It's their property. They can do whatever they want. And that's why that mentality is very dangerous.
Exactly. Took the words right out of my mouth.
I once worked with a guy, and he made the comment he was living with a woman, and they got married. He says, well, now I'm legally obligated to expect sex from her, but she's legally obligated to refuse me. So I thought that was kind of a little funny comment that he made, because I'm like, yes, that's the way he put it anyway. But yeah, that's how, men should not expect it from women just because they're there or they want it. That's wrong. That's not,
I mean, she's trying to push the idea that birth control is all about creating an illusion that women are safe.
That's, yeah.
Well, when you have birth control, you, as you said, Atheist, you're able to plan. You're able to have control over your own body, and creating the culture to say to women that you're allowed to have some control over your reproductive health. I like that idea.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yes.
Maybe I'm not,
exactly.
but I'm getting bored of this one.
How much longer on this video, Bull?
It's a 12-minute video, so you guys have managed
Oh my
to make
gosh.
it 8 minutes. You've already burned, so we've got 3 minutes.
Shall we keep in chipmunk mode?
In chipmunk?
Shall we
Yeah,
keep in chipmunk
let's keep
mode?
it in chipmunk.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to continue on, ladies?
I guess.
If you must, right?
Right.
All right, let's continue on, Bull.
This as kind of a masculine or male model of reproduction as being presented as the norm. And then women are now expected to do violence to their bodies in order to be able to exist in the world and to be as sexually free as men. But then, then it's not a utopia, right? So because contraception is not, even in perfect use, it's not 100% effective. And in typical use, anywhere from 10 to 20% failure rates, right, depending on the method. So even just from I'm not even talking theologically yet, I'm just talking pragmatically. And here's the thing that's super interesting that really shocked me, because there was a time when I was sort of like, okay, I was on board with the pro-life when it comes to abortion, but I was like, but doesn't access to contraception reduce abortions? Like, of course. So how can, as a Catholic, how can I be against contraception when that's the sort of the thing that will reduce abortions? But what's fascinating is that if you look at the research, and you can even look at this, the Guttmacher Institute, which is the research arm of Planned Parenthood, so it's a very pro-choice organization, even their research indicates that once a society becomes contraceptive, abortion rates actually go up. They don't go down. And the reason is because sexual behavior changes. It becomes riskier, it becomes more casual.
This is why pumping condoms into Africa isn't going to help.
Right.
Yeah.
So unplanned pregnancies go up and abortion rates go up. Right? So that was really shocking for me to realize that and to see that there's actually a correlation here because abortion essentially becomes backup contraception. Now once a society is contraceptive, then there's an argument that contraception does reduce abortion rates. Right? So once sort of the cat's out of the bag, then it becomes a more complicated question, the relationship between those two things. But yeah, once I really began to see contraception and abortion as basically two sort of practical extensions of the same idea, rather than contraception being the solution to abortion, that's when that was part of my sort of change.
Fruit of the same tree.
Yes.
And we haven't even begun talking about the detrimental health effects, like the fact that the oral contraceptive pill is a class 1 carcinogen.
Right.
And in a day and age where we're all so intense about being natural, this is the one thing we refuse to look at.
Yes.
I mean, no one has stopped. I mean, there's all these great Netflix videos about all the hormones that go into your food and eating healthy and being green, but we can't talk about that.
There was an interesting study recently that came out about a correlation between birth control and depression as well. So, yeah, it's a significant thing that we're sort of asking women to do.
Yeah.
And it's true, some women, like I did for years, you know, will say, look, I'm not being forced to want this. I'm not being forced to do this. You know, this is, like, I want to, you know, function in the world as a man when it comes to sexuality. And, you know, but the problem is it's, what we want it doesn't always align with what's real. Right?
Yeah.
And there's a givenness to our bodies that we have to reckon with.
Yo, thanks for watching. You can watch the entire episode on YouTube.
Oh, good timing. All right.
One thing I just reminded of when we started that clip, she mentioned the violence done to a women's bodies regarding abortion.
Yeah.
Does she not realize what women's bodies go through when they're pregnant?
Yeah, it's just as dangerous.
And afterwards,
And more so.
there's really, I wouldn't say no difference because I have never had an abortion, but your body goes through 9 months of everything's getting pushed around, and you know, you can't sit right, you can't bend over for a while. You know, I mean, to use that word violence I think was a little extreme on her part.
And there's
Also-
a lot of really bad information that she tried to smuggle her way in there.
Yes.
Even though she didn't bring up on some of it, sometimes it was him talking about things being a class 1 carcinogen or whatever. And I'm like, citation needed.
Exactly.
Because what else is a class 1 carcinogen? Well, coffee.
Coffee.
It should be what isn't a class 1 carcinogen at this point.
It's looking at what does that mean? Because they're being very disingenuous by saying it out like that. And most people don't understand. They just hear the word carcinogenic and they're like, oh, that means it's definitely bad. Well, it may be the case that it is worse than something that is not carcinogenic, but you got to look at the levels, and there's even things in our daily lives with all the pollution and everything else. Everything's trying to kill us. So,
and may I say, I live in California. You can't go into any store without seeing a carcinogen warning on a door.
Exactly.
So, you know, it's there.
There is something really glaringly obvious that I want to challenge because, well, there's two things really. First of all, she made this assumption that birth control and abortion rates go up as they're legalized. No, what happens, okay, let's face this, and Ireland is a perfect example, okay? What happens is we then start to collect data where we weren't before. That is important. So, for instance, Ireland doesn't have an abortion rate pre-2018 because we didn't have it legalized, and yet, according to BPAS and another British clinic, up to 10 women every day of every year gave Irish addresses. So to say that there was no abortion rate in Ireland is just bull, because it was there.
Yeah,
It
that's a
just
good
wasn't
point.
collected by the Irish state. The other thing, I think I've forgotten it, but I mean, look, at the end of the day, again, it comes back to personal choice. And this is why I call people anti-choice instead of pro-life. Because you can be pro-life and still respect other people's choices. And contraception is one of those choices that has to be done with the medical professional. When abortion was illegal in this country, and I'll tell you, over the last 8 years, since I had an abortion, that's the other thing I wanted to talk about actually. I've been with girls, with women who have children, by the way. About 70% of women that have abortions already have at least one child. But what I wanted to say was, I've been in that position where abortion and contraception was restricted. And the simple fact of the matter is, she talked about the violence of abortion, right? When you have an early term abortion, what it is it's 2 pills. Let's just destigmatize this right here and now. The first one cuts off a hormone to the placenta, and the second is taken 48 hours later, and it basically induces contractions naturally. So it is what you would experience if you were going through a miscarriage. There is no violence at all. It is natural as a miscarriage. So I just wanted to explain that, because it's not always violent. It's not always this big, huge, traumatic event. It is as simple and it is as safe as taking paracetamol or aspirin. It's actually safer than taking aspirin, according to the World Health Organization.
And imagine,
sorry, rant over.
Right. And imagine on the other side that in a place where you can't get an abortion, that there is something happen and the baby is no longer viable. And it's going to, at this point, because it's so far along, they can't do an actual abortion. So the woman is forced to birth that dead child. That is, I think, more traumatic than doing an abortion. I mean, you're being forced to carry something all the way to the end and birth it when it's already dead. That's pretty horrific.
Well, it's actually worse than that, because there's a great website you can go to. It's called inhershoes.ie, and it's Irish women telling their stories, and a few women and men who had much wanted babies diagnosed with fatal fetal abnormalities. These are not simply disabilities. These are, the skull hasn't formed, the embryonic fluid hasn't formed, there's no kidneys, so there isn't going to be no baby. And what they were saying was, every day they were waking up thinking, is today the day I'm going to kill my baby? Or going to work and people being so excited, or walking outside the front door and people are saying, oh, when are you due? Do you have a name? That is more traumatic for women than actually giving them the choice to end the pregnancy in a humanistic kind of way.
I agree. I
agree with that as well.
Points, yeah. And I think too that there's one of the videos that I have on my YouTube channel, and I don't have very many, but one of them is on Thompson's violinist, and it's a thought experiment that a philosopher did, and I kind of tweaked it, but I think it brings up an important perspective, and that is I don't owe, like, morally speaking, I should not be forced to save someone's life. I would hope that I would want to, that I would, because I think generally a caring person and a caretaker type person. And if I had to, I probably would help another person. But I don't think that anyone should force you to make that decision. So there's an example, like the violinists, the thought experiment, the original one goes like this. Basically, you wake up and you find out that you've been kidnapped by, I don't know, the Musician Society of whatever, and they have attached your body to a famous violinist. And what is going on is now you are, your body is now keeping that other body alive. And it's only temporary though. It's only going to be for 9 months, and then you can go about your life. And when the doctor comes in to ask them about how everything is going, they kind of look at you and like, well, it's only 9 months. I mean, if it was my choice, I wouldn't do it. You know, I wouldn't do that to you. And it sucks that you're in this position, but now that you're here, well, you know, suck it up, basically. And so what it's supposed to, that thought experiment is supposed to show is that similarly to a woman and a fetus, because sometimes the anti-choice people, they want to say that you have a moral obligation to allow that human to go through the whole process, no matter what stage of life, right? Because conception is when a human begins. And I think it completely disregards the fact that you can't force another person to save another person's life. There are many, many, many times where people have, and there's even a Supreme Court case that ruled on it, that there was a guy who needed a certain type of like bone, what is it called? Bone marrow transplant, which is an extremely painful process, surgery that you have to go through. And they ruled in the way of that, because the brother was like, hey, this is it's not anything off of your back. It's going to be over. You'll be able, you know, you don't need those bone marrows. Just give me my life-saving bone marrow. And the other brother was like, no, I'm not giving you my bone marrow. I'm not going under and dealing with all of the risks that surgery entails just to save your life. So they took him to court. And the guy that won was the one that didn't want to do it. And
Yes.
the Supreme Court said, you cannot force me to do this surgery. And I think that is the important part to highlight is if the person chooses to give bone marrow, more power to you. But you can't force someone to give bone marrow, nor can you force a woman to birth a child if she does not want to.
Okay.
Exactly.
Very valid points. I like that. Should we watch another video?
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Bull, what do we have?
You want reminders? Birth control.
Reminders, please.
Birth control and marriage, all uppercase. Right?
Okay.
Christians, do you think using birth control, contraceptives, is using birth control a sin? Should Christians use birth control? A dark truth about contraceptives with Jason Everett. And
Shall we do I'm sorry, go ahead.
one more, why I hate birth control.
Should we do is birth control a sin? What do you think?
Yeah, let's go for that one.
Sure.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's do that one.
All right, here we go.
I'm glad somebody asked that question, because I think a lot of times couples get married without even thinking about whether there are moral considerations with birth control. And sometime later in their marriage, they might come across something that tells them, oh, some form they've been using or used to use has some moral considerations. So there's a few key points that I want to address. We need to recognize that our culture breeds a sort of procreative liberty. In fact, it's one of the highest values that some people hold, and that includes what I would call a birth control mentality, with the emphasis on control. Right? We want to be in control of everything. And often this is quite contrary to the biblical picture of children as a gift from God, because, of course, gifts are something that we receive, not something that we are completely in control of. And so when we consider the use of birth control, I think one of the things that we want to be clear on is that children are a gift. We can never have complete control, or we should never have complete control over the process of procreation. And sometimes the use of birth control, at least in our culture, portrays children as a burden to marriage. Children get in the way of marriage. And even sometimes evangelicals can have a tendency to think in these terms. So we need to be careful about that. Then the second consideration is that there's two basic kinds of...
Please, Bubble. Now, having been married, I've had kids. I had a child before I was married. I was a single parent for 4 years. Then I got married to my husband. When you have children, it changes your dynamic with your family dynamic. When you first get married, it's not selfish to want to have time with your significant other, your partner. To me, that's normal. You want to have time to enjoy being married and everything that comes with it. And to throw a child into the mix is difficult. I've been there. And I became a step-parent when I got married. And my husband became a step-parent as well. He had a child, I had a child. 16 months later, we had our own child. And it does take a toll on a marriage if you start having kids right away. But I agree, you need to discuss when you are dating somebody if you want to have kids or not. And if that entails you taking birth control to not have children, that's your choice. Mm-hmm. There's nothing morally wrong with that.
Completely agree.
By any stretch of the imagination. It's a personal choice.
Well, I think it's interesting that he puts forward the idea that children get in the way of a marriage, because to evangelicals, it would seem that the whole point of marriage is to procreate. So why would children be getting in the way?
But
right?
See, I always used to joke, I'm like, well, why isn't there some sort of gene or switch on a woman's body? Oh, I'm not married. I can't have kids yet. Turn it off. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, also you get married, that switch gets turned on.
Would be really cool.
There is marriage and children are not mutually exclusive. You know?
I know, and it's like when I got married to my husband and everything, and we had Matthew. It didn't change much. I mean, yeah, it did change because there was a new little person running around.
Yes,
it does, but it didn't completely get in the way of it. If you know what I mean. I mean, it's just in addition to the marriage. You know, it's like there's a child running around now.
I think what gets in the way are the is when like me, I was so focused on taking care of my child. I couldn't give 100% of my time to my husband or even my other child that I had. My focus was on my baby when I had my last child. And I wish I could have given more to both of them. But in a way, you know, when you're taking care of one that's very demanding, what are you supposed to do? That's what changes. But they don't get in the way.
Well, also, I would like to flip it on him. What is his opinion? I kind of know his opinion. What about all of the families out there who aren't married but still have children and still want birth control? Because there is no one set idea of what a family is.
And honestly, if you go back to biblically, why people got married, it was to combine families and riches and dowries and lands.
More strategic than anything.
Exactly. That's why there were a lot of arranged marriages, and I'm sure and still are. It's for that purpose. It has nothing to do with love or, you know, you need to have heirs to keep the, you know, whatever going. That's what it's all about in the biblical sense. It's just been turned into this sacred thing because we humans have turned it into that. I see we have a super chat.
Yeah, we have a
Yeah.
we have a couple, huh?
Anthony Purcell. I mean, no, not a Mickey. Anthony Purcell for Australian $5 said, "The internet is for porn, vile slurs,
Vile slurs. Uh-huh.
and the
occasional?
and the occasional cat or goat video. All this reason and logic and data is unacceptable."
Then we got a couple more, didn't we?
Yeah. Stop singing. I can't see the microphone.
Sorry.
Yeah. Kiwis are for 2,000 Korean won said, "My doggo is my child. My catto is my child."
That's right.
Sarcastic Barman for £2 said, "You sin, I sin, we all sin for exams, orgasms." Can I see that? Can I see the 2,000?
Like that.
Nice, Barman.
Yes, Barman.
Good old Barman. He always makes Matt say something.
Yes, he does, doesn't he?
He does.
Naughty Barman.
boy.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Okay, anybody else have something to say, or should we continue on?
Hold on, I
Let's
was
go.
gonna put in
Okay,
a
let's
really
continue.
deep no.
No.
Okay, let's continue on.
All right.
I know.
Birth control that I would address. One is those forms of birth control that prevent conception from taking place, and the other are forms of birth control that act after conception, which would prevent the newly created human life, the new embryo, from implanting in the mother's womb. So methods that prevent fertilization would include barrier methods such as condoms or diaphragm, or we might include, it's a little bit different, but we might include in this natural family planning, in which the way this works is that intercourse takes place when the woman is not in her fertile period, so there's no conception that takes place there either. Those methods that act after fertilization would include things like implants, hormonal implants, IUDs, or RU486, and these operate as a form of abortion, in effect, an abortifacient effect, because they act after fertilization has taken place, preventing the embryo from implanting in the womb. Now, one other form that I would mention here would be oral contraceptives. This is very commonly used, and there is some controversy among evangelicals about this because of how they operate. And so one of the secondary effects of oral contraceptives, or I'll say birth control pills, is that they will thin the uterine lining, making implantation difficult. So some evangelicals have come out very vocally in opposition to birth control pills because of this effect, while others will come back and say, we need to think more carefully about this.
That is a lie. That is a lie. Yes, in a sense, it does thin out the wall because it's supposed to regulate your periods. It doesn't actually prevent fertilization. Sorry, I just had to point that out. That is a lie. We can go back to the video now.
Okay.
That's all
good
I wanted
point.
to say.
I'm sorry, I was coughing. I had
Say,
to.
was there anything else?
No, I think we're good. Let's go back to the video.
In some ways, because their rationale is that if breakthrough ovulation occurs, the pill has failed. And if the pill has failed, then it is likely not acting to thin the uterine lining, so it's not creating a more hostile place for implantation. In fact, they would argue, if conception occurs after breakthrough ovulation, then the woman's body is starting to produce hormones that will make the uterus friendly for implantation. So I'm not a medical doctor. I've read a lot of the literature on this, but I would counsel couples to refer to a healthcare provider who can give better information and fuller information, and for couples to discuss that with their healthcare provider. Although they should recognize that sometimes their healthcare provider won't.
Hard agree.
I just the thing he said about the womb being a hostile environment. It is normally anyway. Why do you think men produce so many frickin' sperm? It's in the hopes that one fertilizes the egg.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the pill does not make it any less hostile, or any more hostile.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I just want to double up on the last part. This guy is definitely not a doctor.
No.
So definitely see your doctor and not this dude.
Yes, exactly.
if you're going to a priest or a reverend for your medical advice, you kind of need counseling.
unless they're actual doctors, don't go to them.
Yeah.
just don't. Go to an actual doctor that knows what they're talking about. Yeah. Okay, let's continue.
I'm sorry. Give me 1 second.
Oh, that's okay, Bull.
Have any objection to types of birth control that do prevent implantation. So they need to recognize that and simply ask questions about how the particular form works. So a third consideration has to do with if you are looking at those forms of birth control that are acceptable because they don't prevent implantation, then we might want to consider some basic things. I mean, this is just marriage 101, that we ought to be in agreement on the form that we use. And neither the husband nor the wife ought to put pressure on the other to use a particular form. And a given couple may find one form of birth control more burdensome than another, and that may vary from couple to couple. So we need to think about these things together. The last point that is often raised is the issue of permanent measures. So something like a tubal ligation for the wife or a vasectomy for the husband. And one of my concerns here is that this is qualitatively different from other forms of birth control. So the fact that it's permanent, one of the things that I would teach about marriage is that since procreation is one of the purposes of marriage, we ought to always be open to procreation. And it seems to me difficult to say in what meaningful way we are open to the gift of procreation if we've taken a permanent measure to avoid procreation. Now, there still may be reasons for doing that. And so I don't want to say that just to do this is wrong. But some of those reasons might be because of a couple's age, and they've had a number of children, and now they're up in age, or maybe there's a high risk of a genetic problem, or there might be some other reasons. But I would exercise great caution if it's just a matter of having had 1 or 2 or 3 children and deciding we don't want any more, so this is going to be our effective method. I would be very cautious about that. One of the questions that students often ask me is, in what sense can you be open to the gift of children if you're using contraception? And my answer to that is because overall you can be open to the gift of children, but for a time you may simply be using contraception. And I would illustrate this, in fact, in my own life when we had our 3rd child, and it was a difficult time for my wife because it was a difficult labor and delivery, and our daughter was having some difficulty thriving, and so we weren't planning on getting pregnant anytime soon, and so we were using contraception for the time being, and within about 2 months she found out that she was pregnant again. Now, if you're open to the gift of procreation, the way I would illustrate that is that you receive that news with joy. And frankly, it came a little bit as a shock, and we weren't sure how we were going to handle that, but it did come as a gift from God, and so we received that with joy, and we're quite pleased. The bottom line is then, when you consider contraception,
there are times when my mother should not have been born. My grandmother was told after she had her first child, do not have any more children, because she was damaged from giving birth on the inside. Well, my mother came out 2 years later, thank God, because I'm here. But there are those rare cases where women, if they're told if you get pregnant again, either A, you may not carry the baby to term, or B, it could kill you.
Yeah.
Are you going to risk that?
Well, I mean, can I just put in there?
Yes,
because
go ahead.
my mom has spina bifida and scoliosis, so these are pretty serious. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
She was always told that if she ever had children, she would end up in a wheelchair at best. And the point of it is that, like what you just said, she made the decision to follow through with her pregnancies with her medical staff, with her doctor, and they did the best thing that they could for her. And my mother is a very, very strong woman. She raised 2 children on her own, and not a bother on her. She was a carer for my grandparents, and she's still walking around today. Doctors can get it wrong, but the point of it is that when you do it with your doctors and it's your choice, then you're in a better position and a stronger position to actually succeed.
Agreed.
But I also want to point out, did you notice there? He said, well, we used contraception, so it's kind of like, do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Agreed.
And
Yeah, and I think it completely disregards the fact that too that there are couples that don't have children, whether they chose to or not. It doesn't make their marriages any less valid. And his little slide remark about you just had 3 children and you just don't want a 4th. Yeah, that's a lot of children, and not everybody is equipped to handle 1, much less 5.
and the more,
And that's an insane amount of kids.
and the more children you have physically with your body, the more risk you take with each pregnancy.
Right. It's like my older sister has 6 kids. The last one was just 1, but the one before that was actually a pair of surprise twins. And like she did have a choice where at one point where she was considering doing a tubal ligation because she had 5 kids at that point because she wasn't expecting twins. And in the end, she decided not to. And yeah, now she I think the last one just had their first year, their first birthday. So but it was something that it was her choice. But for every pregnancy that she's had, from like her 3rd on, she's had gestational diabetes and preeclampsia and all of these other things, so that her pregnancies have been getting worse and worse because it tears up her body.
Yes.
And it's so dangerous.
Yes. Anybody else have anything to say?
I just want to address something real quick in the chat. Brandon Worrell said, "Do it with your doctors."
Yes, I saw that.
Sorry for the phrasing. Bad phrasing. Bad Keela.
But they get
I'm
what we
slapping
mean.
my wrist right now. Bad Keela.
Bad Keela. Bad Keela. Okay. Thank you, Brandon. That was funny. All right. Shall we continue on?
Think so.
Let's do it.
I think
Where you consider birth control methods, there's a distinction between those that prevent fertilization and those that act after fertilization. And I would reject those that act after fertilization. And then finally, just to remember that whether planned or not, every child is a gift from God of immeasurable value.
Thanks for watching Honest Answers. You can submit your questions by email.
I didn't realize we were that close to being done, or we would have waited.
Yeah, right. Apparently we're impatient.
Oh well.
What shall we watch next?
Yeah,
Okay,
their outros
what's
are
next,
pretty
Bull?
lengthy. Well, let's see. We did why it's anti-women and is it a sin? Let's do why I hate birth control.
Yeah, let's do that one. Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
And it's one of her favorite people.
Oh God.
I'll just.
Oh no.
No.
Yes. Oh yes.
Hello, my name is Lori Alexander, and today I wanted to share with you why I absolutely hate birth control. Before birth control was readily available and people approved of it, most families had 6 to 8 children. That was the average children that people had. And women knew their purpose in life before birth control. I've been writing a lot about this lately and getting a lot of flack about it, but God, from the very beginning, made Eve as a helpmeet to her husband. So you were created to be a helpmeet to your husband. The first command to Adam and Eve was to be fruitful and multiply. He's never changed his mind. He tells older women to teach younger women to love their husbands, love their children. It means they have husbands and children. Tells younger widows to marry their children and guide the home. He all throughout Scripture, children are a blessing. And those...
Oh my God! Right. First of all, anyone else here hear her talk about marrying their children?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The hell?
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
Wow. Okay. The other thing I want to bring up real quick is the idea that women used to have 8 or 10 children. My mother is one of 11, and my father is one of 13. And one of the reasons, well, 2 reasons. one of the reasons why women kept having children was A, the lack of birth control,
Yes.
and B, because they were basically slaves to their husbands.
Yep.
And anytime the husband wanted sex, they would have sex. And what comes out of sex half the time? Children.
But also there was a benefit back in the day, like when they had farms and things like that, having extra hands, it helps your family put food on the table. And it made sense because then it's someone that you basically don't have to pay to do all the chores around the farm.
Yeah, and it was another thing as well, pre-sanitation. The reason why you had so many children is because of the ultra high mortality rate amongst infants. We don't really have that anymore. So just wanted to point that out.
Does anybody else have the Life of Brian's thing about every sperm is sacred in their head now, that scene? Because it's in my head now.
Yeah, we should have warned the chat like ultra face palm here. Where's Blue to get that little
Oh my God.
Get your screens away from the face palming.
We should have that. We should have that sound bite just for a little sound bite for that. We'll have to talk to Blue about borrowing it from him.
Apparently widowed people. Well, apparently widowed women can marry their children, and isn't her child like 12?
She's just such a gross human.
That's just, as a widow
that
myself.
that is ick. I'm sorry. That's the ick factor there.
What was that, Amy?
As a widow, that's just myself. That's just wrong. Just wrong.
I mean, we don't live in Egyptian times where the siblings married each other because that was what was expected. You know, the pharaohs and things. You know, we don't have to do that. And the be fruitful and multiply thing was because they had to populate the earth. If it was just Adam and Eve, they had to populate the earth somehow, correct? But yes, we did have a super chat. Let's go ahead and take care of that.
Sarcastic Barman for £5 said, "Yeah, your only purpose to have kids." What the what the fuck is wrong with this woman?
Matthew. Language, Matthew. Language.
When he does that, it cracks me up because he adds to, instead of saying the letters, he adds the words.
Of course,
this cracks me up. Oh, thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Oh, shall we continue?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Begrudgingly, shall we continue?
Yes.
Those who are infertile deeply mourn over it. So before birth control, women knew their purpose in life was to have children. Because if they had sex, often they most likely had children. And they wanted a father for those children. So it was a huge impediment to wait for sex until marriage. Because there was nothing to stop them from getting pregnant back then. And people would get married, and soon after they would have children. Maybe a lot of honeymoon babies back then. But now, because of college debt, student college debt, and loan and birth control, couples get married, and who knows when they're going to have children. A lot of couples are choosing not to have children, and if they do, they just have one or two because of birth control and college debt. I think both of those are Satan's way to keep women far away from God's purpose for their life. God wants women in the home, raising their children. What can be more important than raising the next generation? I hate birth control because when I got married, I was on birth control because that.
What is more important than raising children?
My sanity?
Being a well-rounded human being with a consciousness that's accepted in society and respected?
Yeah, I mean, I would say my sanity. Like, I mean, just let's be real. Like, I like my way, how I no. Children, no. It just would not work out well. I can barely take care of myself. How am I going to take care of another child that I don't want? Like, it just doesn't make any sense to, like some people don't have that, like, want. And at the middle, why do you want people to have children they don't want? Like, I don't understand that. She's a garbage woman.
My sister, when she got married to my brother-in-law, or her husband, she was had a full-time job. She really literally wanted to have a house before she had children. So she waited.
Yep.
When she got pregnant with my nephew, she had very high blood pressure the entire pregnancy. She was taken off of, I think within 3 months of the pregnancy, she was taken off of work. And within a few months after that was literally put on bed rest. And she ended up having my nephew 6 weeks early, not because of him, but because of her high blood pressure. It was so high, they literally had to give her like an epidural to suppress her nervous system, or she'd literally have a convulsion and a stroke. Now, she decided after that, that's no more children for me, which is smart on her part.
Yep.
Because that's risking her life. And so she talked about adoption, but it never happened. They only had the one child. She is not a nurturer, but she had the child anyway. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Can I call something else out real quick?
Yes, go ahead.
She asked there, she said there's something about society wanting to drive women away from God's purpose for them. Now, I was raised a Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
I have studied I've studied several religious texts as part of my degree course. And what I want to say really is, it's not disrespect to Christians or to religious people, but God hasn't spoken to people in 2,000 years. So when he spoke to people pre-2,000 years ago, he was a vengeful God. 2,000 years ago, he was a loving God, and he hasn't really engaged with us since. So, the last we heard from God, if you are going to follow the Christian belief, is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Love one another as you love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
In which case, respect their choices.
Yes.
That's all I got to say.
I would also add on to it is another thing that this woman kind of presupposes is that the only thing that a woman is good for is birthing these children and taking care of these children and all of that stuff. But there's so many other things, so many other things that people can do, dedicating their life to, say, art or music or science and or even business. And there's people that go out into their own community. I work with 9 different animal rescues. I give back to my community in various ways, not just with the animal rescues, but with teen writing programs and with other things like that. So it's important to say that just because you don't have a, quote, God purpose doesn't mean that you can't create your own purpose and do whatever you want to do, whatever makes you happy and content, and whatever, like, you don't need it to be God-given in order for it to make a big and make an impact on other people's lives.
Right. And the implication is with her is women don't matter except to have children. Women matter no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, Vegan-Atheist, do you find that a lot of religious fundamentalists, they kind of run on a purely biological belief instead of seeing a societal belief and seeing women's role in society as being positive? One of the things that I would like to ask this nutjob is what she thinks of nuns. If she thinks that women are only there for children, what does she think of nuns?
Yeah, among other things. I mean, there's even, like, what about the women that are infertile and can't have children?
Right.
What about them? What about the people that are too up in age and just haven't had the opportunity to have children? What about them? I mean, it's just forgetting about, what about the women that maybe they weren't born with the as a cis woman, but still they are a woman. Like there are other types of people, and when you try to force these categories, it becomes an impediment, because then you have these crazies like Lori who think that that women's worth is tied to her biology, and they lose out because there's so much other things in the world that they could do, but they don't see it.
Correct.
Agreed.
And I do want to say one thing. Women, people saying women shouldn't use birth control is not just a religious thing. There are some people out there that's just how it is. Or they want to be so controlling that they won't allow the woman to use birth control. That's out there as well.
Yeah.
So we don't want to peg this all as it's a religious thing.
No, it's not. It's definitely not.
Yeah. So
Great
I just want to put that out there. Mm-hmm.
Shall we
Shall
continue?
we continue? Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
Gladly.
That's what you were supposed to do. Oh, heaven forbid you had a baby on your honeymoon, you know. Got pregnant on your honeymoon. I would have loved getting pregnant on my honeymoon. All I ever wanted to do was be married and have children. Like, I've made a video before that the feminists didn't really influence me at all in that area. I thought having children was going to be the most wonderful thing in the world, and it absolutely has been. Yeah, it's a lot of sacrifice and time, but it's wonderful. And I recently heard, yesterday I heard cousins say that Disney World, attendance is way down because millennials are not having children. They're pursuing things of this world instead of what God calls them to do. If you look at your bodies, women, we have breasts, ovaries, wombs. We have monthly periods that remind us of our purpose in life from the time that we're, 12 to 50 or so. Every single month we're reminded of our purpose in life is to bear and have children. And women just want to avoid that. They want to pursue careers. Birth control is a great avenue for them to go far from God's will for their lives. Promiscuous sex, diseases from it, heartbreak. They don't understand that sex is a lot more than a physical act. It's a spiritual act of two becoming one flesh and creating life. It's a beautiful thing, and it's only supposed to be within the bonds of marriage. Having children is a beautiful thing. And now it's that birth control pills are polluting the waterways, and it's doing so much damage to men and boys, all the estrogen they're getting from the water. They've looked at marine life and seen how it's horribly affected them. So, and then women will say, well, my grandmother, died.
Wait, did she just do the equivalent of the estrogen in the water is turning the boys
because
gay?
People,
pretty
much. Yeah.
Can I quickly
much.
address something? Thank you for pausing that, Boo. Can I also just really quickly address something that she said? She said, all I ever wanted out in my life was to grow up and have get married and have children. And I do want to call her out on that fallacy. Yes, you're brought up in a society that promotes the nuclear family as the perfectionist family, okay? But the problem with that is those dreams of the perfect family do not always work out. And one of the reasons why birth control is actually so important is for women in abusive relationships. And that hasn't been spoken about yet.
Yes.
There are many women in abusive relationships who truly, truly want children, but cannot bring themselves to dare to bring a child into that relationship, into a toxic environment. And that is okay too, and they should be backed up and supported in that decision.
And I think what she's getting the estrogen in the water is, I think she's getting mixed up because there are people that throw prescriptions down the toilets. I don't know if anybody I don't know if any that are throwing their birth control pills down a toilet. So
I've never heard of it.
Highly confused in that regard.
Yeah, I think there's also a lot of misinformation
Not to
out
mention
there
soy.
about whether or not the factories or whatever that create it, whether or not their runoff it goes into the lakes and turns the fishes mostly female or whatever. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, and so it is important that when you are looking into, and these are like water pollution and all of those things are very, very important, but it is also very important to look at the actual data and talk to the people that are actually doing that research and in that field, so that way you can truly understand what they're actually talking about, because it's not that the frogs are turning gay or that your fish are all female or whatever. There's other things at play here.
Correct. And she's also ignoring that certain foods that we eat that have soy in it can up estrogen as well. So it's not just pills.
Yeah, but again, with soy too, again, that goes along with a lot of the misinformation that's out there, that when they actually go in and do the tests on soy, they're actually able to look at how they expect this different type of estrogen to raise these levels, and when they find that it didn't actually happen, a lot of people were surprised. So again, it comes down to looking at the studies and making sure that the things that we read, it's not just about reading the headlines or the articles. It's going into the actual data, looking at the way that these research was done, and making your assessments there.
Okay, understood. Shall we continue?
Yeah, let's go.
Having her 10th baby. So yay for birth control. Well, my husband's mother died after having twins, and she had a lot of children, but never, because she had a blood clot and she was told not to get out of bed. But she heard the twins cry, so she got out of bed, and the blood clot went to her heart. And I'd heard that story multiple times, but I never once thought, it's too bad we didn't have birth control, so she didn't have those children. Well, because of birth control, over 60 million babies have been aborted. Over 1 million a year are being aborted because children are, women use birth control pills, and they're not 100% effective, and so they get pregnant. Oh, it's an inconvenience, and I wasn't ready to have a baby, so they abort the baby. The womb has become the most unsafe place for babies to be. And then we have the women saying, well, I need it for this and that, and well, there's a lot of, if having another baby is harmful to your health, I think it would be a lot safer to have your tubes tied, because all forms of the birth control pill can cause abortions. A friend of mine was in midwifery school, and a leftist, very liberal, pro-choice professor told her this was a fact. Read the inserts on the birth control pills. No matter what amount of birth control pills that you take, they can all cause abortions. And so this professor told the up-and-coming midwives that they must tell their pro-life customers this, that the birth control absolutely can cause abortions. If people can get pregnant on the birth control pill, it means that an embryo can implant into the womb, and then the birth control pill makes sheds the lining of the womb, which causes an abortion. So women, there's no reason that we should be on a birth control pill. If it's health problems, get to the root of it. Birth control pills don't heal. They just mask the symptoms and cause a lot of side effects, including infertility. So get to the root of your problems, try natural means, research your problem, and find out people were cured naturally. The body is an amazing creation by our God and Savior, and it can heal itself of most everything. We don't need a birth control pill that's led to so much devastation in our lives, including fewer children for me.
Please. Men wearing tidy whities can cause infertility.
Right.
Okay. I don't hear people saying those are a sin. just saying.
Well, and she says about the body can cure almost anything. I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of things that the body can't cure.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a walking
and women have gotten pregnant on the pill.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think women have gotten pregnant on the pill, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not qualified to know whether. I'm assuming it's happened where the egg never fertilized correctly, maybe, or never attached when it came down. I know that can happen. It won't, because it has to. A good set of circumstances have to happen for you to actually get pregnant.
Yeah, it's a very complex system that we have, and everything has to kind of go right, and we have so many different things that could go wrong, like ectopic pregnancies and things like that. And so there's many different reasons that you might want to use birth control. I used it for many years for my personal health, and she's saying, like, go take an essential oil or something. I don't even know. But it's like, come on, that's not going to help you. It's not.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. It's not. Oh my gosh. Anybody else have anything to say, or should we continue? Oh, hang on. I think we have a super chat first.
Oh, Matthew, we got a super chat, baby. And while I'm waiting for him to come, too, as far as, the body can heal everything, no. I have a
The body can
pituitary
repair to a point,
exactly,
Yeah.
but it
you
can't
know how-
heal everything.
Well, that's exactly it. It's I had had a pituitary adenoma for 35 years.
Yeah.
Did my body heal that? Nope.
No. If the body healed everything, well, why would we die? That's contradictory.
Exactly.
We regenerate and renew, and we'd be fine again. I mean, that's just not how life works or anything works. This woman really needs to do her research. We got a super chat, huh?
Yeah. Golden unicorn for New Zealand, $5 for 5,000 New Zealand dollars for 5 New Zealand dollars.
Correct.
Said my doc told me if I had my pill with my antibiotic, still can become pregnant. I take pill for my pimples. Face with teeth emoji.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And yeah, I mean, the pill can be taken for so many different things, like, even just to regulate.
Yeah.
It's just
My daughter is on it because she has very painful periods, and we're trying everything we can to figure out why at this point. It's been going on since she was 13, 14. She's had painful periods, and my aunt had endometriosis, so we think she may have it, but that's so difficult to diagnose.
Yeah.
So, her doctor and her are trying everything they can at this point short of surgery, to help her out.
Absolutely. And sometimes I know a lot of people, like I've heard a lot of people hear about, like, say, my issues, and they're like, oh, it's probably endometriosis. Well, I've gone back and forth with my doctors, and we've discussed that, and sometimes it just comes down to the shape of your actual uterus not being correct. And that in and of itself can actually cause issues, and making it more difficult for people to get pregnant, or to have more painful periods or whatever. And so there's so many different, we can't underestimate how much like it can help people to be on birth control.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Okay, should we go have more stupid?
Yeah, I guess.
I suppose.
We're all getting headaches, aren't we? Yeah, how much longer do we have on this, Boole?
Let me double check that. 26 seconds.
Let's get this done, please.
Let's get it done.
We can do this. We can do this.
I'm sure fewer children for most of you, because we took that lie hook, line, and sinker that having children right away is bad, or having too many children is wrong. No, children are blessings and gifts from God. They're eternal beings. The most wonderful thing that you can invest your life into, women, are children. So, come make babies. Bye-bye.
No thanks.
Looking at her, and this is totally what she wasn't talking about. She could not look at. She wasn't looking at where the camera looks at her. Did you notice that?
Did.
It's like, can we have some eye contact? It would be really nice. But okay.
Yeah. Her spewing her so-called pearls of wisdom. Oh my God. Yeah. Everyone is equipped.
Anyone have any comments on that, or shall we go to the next? Well, it's 6:04. Do we have time for? We should have time for one more video, right, Bull?
Yeah, if we stick to a short one, yes.
Okay.
So
yeah, let's stick to a short one.
Let's do the really big. It was actually an exclamation, but I had to take it out. Birth control in marriage.
Yeah, let's do that one.
Yeah.
go.
For those of you who are just joining us, I hold an Instagram live Q&A session every Tuesday on my Instagram
at mwills, at EMWILSS. Let's get to your question for today. A lot of you have been asking about the reasons Daniel and I don't use contraception in our marriage. And I get why you've been asking, because that's not something a lot of people do. I get why you're curious, and I get why that's something you wanted me to share about. So because I like sharing with you guys, and because I love being real and raw and honest with you guys, I want to just share those reasons with you today. It's a very personal decision, a decision that Daniel and I made together for our marriage. It wasn't a decision that I made by myself and I told Daniel we're going to do this, or a decision that he made and he said we're going to do this. We talked about this and decided that this is something that we are going to agree to do together for our marriage. So I want to talk about a couple of different reasons why we made that decision together today. Now, when I'm talking about birth control within marriage, I'm talking about all forms of contraception. Daniel and I, from the day we got married until today, have never used any form of contraception in our marriage. Now, we do not have any children up to this day. That's not because we have been using contraception. It's just simply because that's not something that God has planned for our life in this very moment. I talked about that a little bit in my Q&A. Disclaimer, I asked Daniel if I could share about this with you guys, and he said yes, because it's a very personal decision that we made together, but it's a really important decision that we made together, and a lot of you said, why do you do that? So here we go. The first reason is that within our wedding ceremony, we had a Catholic wedding mass because we are practicing Catholic Christians. There's a very important part that happened before we said our vows, and that was where we get to state our intentions. And within that, that's the part where the priest, the Catholic priest who married us, asked us if we had come there freely and without reservation. He asks us to state our intentions before we say our vows to one another. And within that time, that period before the vows, he asked us a very specific question. The priest asked us both, will you accept children lovingly from God and bring them up according to the law of Christ and his church? That's a question that is asked to the couple within every Catholic Christian wedding mass, and that was something that was asked to us, and Daniel and I both said we will. We said in front of all our friends and family, we will. And now to accept means to consent to receive. In that moment, we both answered yes, and we agreed to receive anything that God wanted to give us within the context of our marriage. So we said yes in that moment. We said yes to that question, that we will receive children lovingly from God. And that wasn't like a maybe, that wasn't like a half-hearted yes. That was for us a full and resounding yes. And if we had said yes to that question of will you accept children lovingly from God and then use birth control or contraception in our marriage, we would have been lying to God in front of all our friends and family. And that's not something that we wanted to do. We said we will to that question, which was a very important part of our wedding ceremony. It was a very important part of the mass where we said our vows to one another. We said we would accept children lovingly from the hand of God. Reason number 2, the side effects of different contraceptions and birth control can be
Okay.
I feel like we should address that bullshit first.
Okay. I have a feeling her and her husband probably discussed it prior to marriage, so the yes was just a no-brainer at that point.
Yeah, and I guess my thing that I was thinking the entire time that she was speaking is that's good that that's what she wanted, but not everybody wants that. And I mean, my older sister, she has 6 kids. She loves being a mom. And like she gets a lot of purpose and joy and everything else from that. And I love that that's what she loves to do. But not everybody is like that. And like her whole thing was like, well, because I felt this way, then you should as well. And that's just not the case.
And the fact that she hasn't gotten pregnant yet is just pure luck at this point.
Yeah.
But she's also never gone into what are they using, like the natural method? Are they not having, sex after, what was it, the 2 weeks after the period? There's that 2-week mark where there's like a couple days where a woman is fertile. That could be what she's probably using, but she's not stating anything about that, how they're going about not getting pregnant.
Right, because she wants it to be, to show that
Yes.
it's God's will, and
Right.
it's being a little bit disingenuous. Or on the other side, she could, in fact, be infertile, or he could
True.
be, and
Mhm.
that could be the reason why.
Yes.
I mean, there's many different reasons why people don't have children, and it's not necessarily because you want them or don't want them.
And if God wants you to have children, why are there infertile women out there?
Right?
Do you know? I mean, yeah. If you got to go by, by her version of things, why are there infertile women and not being able to have children? Yeah. So it's a biological thing that's been turned into something else. Anybody have anything else to say?
No.
All right, let's continue.
Very, very, very serious. And those just are risks that I'm not willing to take. I do not want to control my body artificially if I do not have to, and I do not have to. I like treating my body the way it's supposed to be. There are so many side effects that come along with taking birth control, and some of those side effects can be debilitating. Women have had strokes or become permanently injured or experienced death. The side effects of birth control can be very, very damaging to women's bodies, and that's not
We've gone through that before.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Have you seen the mortality rate of women in America? Like, come on.
That is so much crap in such a short space of time. Wow. Okay. There is always going to be side effects. And yes, there are different methods of birth control. There are different, even the pills, there's different levels of pills. That's why you test them out with consultation with your doctor to find what suits your body. It's not a one size fits all. It's never a one size fits all. But the idea that medication, that you shouldn't take, because what she just said there is, I don't poison my body with stuff that isn't natural for me. Well, penicillin isn't natural. And yet penicillin does a very, very good job. And it's there for us to use. Vaccines do a very, very good job. There are so many things. Airplanes aren't natural. And yet I'm willing to bet she has been on an airplane before. She has electricity. Electricity isn't, in the form that we use it, isn't natural. We create it. So I just have this issue with people, and I do get a little bit triggered. I do have this issue with people saying anything that isn't from the natural world is equal to bad.
Yes.
But we
Yes.
her back is synthetic. She is using things that are not natural. If you're going to go down that road, then wear natural clothing. She's not wearing natural clothing. Don't have a nice fancy home. Live in a cave, because houses aren't natural, right?
Right.
If you're going to use that argument, be consistent. That's all I'm saying.
And may I say, when you go on the pill, you get talked to about certain things that can affect the pill and affect the effects of it, like smoking ups your rate of blood clots. If you're on antibiotics, it cannot work with the birth control pill. Sometimes you can get pregnant because you're on antibiotics, things of that nature. So certain things you do apart and above the medication you're taking have an effect on it.
Yeah, like I was on Depo-Provera for a while, and we actually removed. I stopped taking it because I looked at what the risks are for osteoporosis, and since I had already been on it for 10 years, I said, let me go ahead and switch to a different kind because my risks are higher. I was able to discuss it with my doctor and make that determination.
There you go, and that's what it's all about. Discuss it with your doctor. But I mean, just getting up every day out of bed, there's risks to your health.
Yeah, I just find it frustrating that
it is frustrating.
they kind of overestimate the or overinflate the risks to women's health and lives. I'm sorry, love, but you're not a doctor. and I'm not going to trust your word over what's right for my body over my medical team. It's just not going to happen.
Okay, it's 6:15, so let's get through this. How much more time do we have on it, Boole?
We have 2 minutes, 29 seconds.
Okay, we can get through this, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Something that I'm willing to risk, and that's not something that Daniel wants me to risk in order to prevent us from having children. Reason number 3, we trust God. And that's not something that people who don't believe in God would get. Like, I totally understand that people who don't believe in God or don't understand faith, I totally get why that would make no sense to them. But Daniel and I trust God completely. And we really believe that God knows better than we do. When I say, God, I trust you with my problems, I trust you with my life, I trust you with that situation, I trust you with everything, I don't want to say, but God, I don't trust you with my fertility. God, who is the same yesterday, today, and forever, knows me, and he knows Daniel, and he knows what is best for us, and he knows what is good for us. And honestly, I don't think that God's going to give us 8 children if he wants us to have 4 children, and I don't think he's going to give us 4 children if he wants us to have 8 children. I think that God has a very specific plan for Daniel and I. Daniel and I entered into a marriage that is designed to be life-giving. We want our marriage to be life-giving when God wants it to be life-giving, not when we want it to be life-giving. We wholeheartedly and truly trust his plan. Trusting God with everything is so scary, and the surrender of God's plan for our family to him, it doesn't come without fear. It doesn't come with without, oh my gosh, like, what is God gonna do with this? Like, what is his plan? That's a scary, crazy thing, no matter what you're surrendering to God. And we trust that if God wants to give us the beautiful gift of a child, whether that's 1 child or whether that's 7 children, that
So
Well,
basically,
I
feels good,
have-
God feels good. God.
Right.
I just have this image of the way she's talking, that to God, we're all Sims.
Right. That's
That
exactly what it is.
He created us for his own video game, basically. If you believe in
pretty
that.
much. Right. Can I just address something there?
Yeah.
Because she says that I trust God. Okay, I trust my doctor, first of all, but that's beside the point. Okay, you can trust God. That's fine. That is your way of life, and I respect that. But my question is, right, and we're gonna get copyright stricken probably for this, but God's plan is open to interpretation.
Yes.
Massively. If you believe in God, it is open to interpretation what you choose to do with the gifts you are given. And I'm going to quote Bruce Almighty in this. And I know, for God, yeah. And the quote is, when people ask for patience, does God just give them patience or give them an opportunity to be patient? So the point is, you're given opportunities in your life to make your own decisions, that it doesn't always have to be about God. Even if you do believe in God, take some damn responsibility for your life.
Right.
Don't just throw it over to your deity or deities. Take some responsibility and make your own decisions that conform to your way of life, but don't lay the blame on the deity. You are just following what you think the deity wants, but take responsibility for them.
Yes,
Don't say, because God said.
Yes, and if you believe that God created you and gave you life, you should be responsible for your own body, and show him you can take responsibility for your own body.
Well, it comes down to the idea that if God has a plan, then surely God's plan was to create the medical profession. Surely God's plan was to create the ability for humans to have children or to make families in the time that suited them. Otherwise, birth control wouldn't exist if everything is in God's plan. So that has to be respected too.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and all this is presupposing that it actually exists. Right now, as far as I know, this is the only life that we live in and that we have, and this is the one that I have control over and that I can change and mold and interact with. And I don't know about anything else. I don't think anybody can know about anything else. And so at this point, I know that what I do has consequences. And so I second that it's take accountability of your actions. It's not about whatever, like whether you believe or not or whatever. We know right here, if more humans actually took that initiative and cared about the present, things would not be. You can't just wait for God or somebody else to fix it. You have to fix it.
What's that
Very
verse?
true.
That verse, God helps those that help themselves.
Yep.
That kind of applies.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Shall we watch the end of it?
Let's go ahead and watch the end of this.
Yes, it will be challenging. Yes, it will be beautiful. Yes, it will be wonderful. And in everything, it will be exactly how he designed it. Now, there's a lot of different facets to this. There's
Welcome to the buffer, you buffer tube.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yay,
That's
technology,
you.
right?
I think we're back.
I think she broke it.
Yeah,
I
we're
think
back.
she broke it.
Yeah, we're
Her,
back.
Chat,
her
are we back?
enthusiasm broke the internet.
Let's see if the chat, are we back? I know there's a delay.
Yeah.
Oh, Factard is doing the typical thing to Streamlabs again. The typical salute.
Middle finger.
If buffering is the goal,
Yeah,
it's
we're back.
buffering very, very well.
We're back.
Okay, we're
guys.
back. Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh. So, shall we do a round table and see what we all thought of that before we get out of here?
I
Sure.
think so.
Okay. Let's start with Coral Vegan, our guest. What did you think of the show overall and this and whatever?
Yeah. Well, I thank you again for inviting me on. But yeah, I think we've covered a lot of really, really good things. I think the big thing is that we have a culture of uplifting tradition and religious ceremonies and things like that, and we give weight to things like even in the vegan community, people uphold natural versus unnatural chemicals and all of that stuff. And what people forget is that we are chemicals, and everything is a chemical reaction, and like that's it. It becomes a fallacy in its own way. And so I think that the way that we were ending it on personal accountability and being receptive to what your doctor is telling you, and being receptive to figuring out what is best for your life and your lifestyle, and whether or not you truly want to have children. Because I don't know about you guys, I want people to have children that want to have children.
Mhm.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear, yes. Crafty, your thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, I got a lot out during the
Yeah, you did.
course of a live stream, which I'm very vocal anyway, but I think that's the most vocal I've been. Yeah, look, at the end of the day, I do believe that all of these discussions, all of these choices have to be made by women themselves, with consultation with their doctors, and with consultation with their partners. At the end of the day, though, the choice has to end up with women, because, as it was said in some of the videos, there are consequences to actions.
Mhm.
And when the choices are left up to women, they can minimize those consequences. They always talk about accountability when it comes to having children. and not having children, having sex. There's always consequences, and you have to bear the brunt of that consequence. But you also need the opportunity to prevent that situation from arising. So I am delighted to be here. I love being here. Thanks again for having me on. And yes, talk to your doctors if you have medical problems. Do not talk to these nut jobs.
Here.
Here, here. Sai, do you have any thoughts on this video? Or the ones that we watched?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that, don't judge people just based on what you think or you think the way a person should act or behave or what you think they should do or not do. You never know really what anybody else is going through, what health problems they may have or issues they struggle with. So when it comes down to telling somebody that they should or shouldn't use, birth control, whether it be for religious reasons or medical reasons or whatever, that's a very personal thing for each person. And I think that, nobody should be telling anybody else, what they should or shouldn't do with that.
Perfect. Aimee, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, please, if I could. I've noticed a recurring theme tonight. Do as I do because what I know is best. No, not everyone thinks exactly as you do. Not everyone can make the choices that you do exactly as you do. And not everyone believes as you do. That's this whole recurring theme that I'm seeing, and that's what I'm thinking is, no, I'm not going to be exactly like these people that I see. I'm not going to be exactly like even my own family. It's just the way it works. And to expect, and to expect people to walk in lockstep with them is so wrong, because it's what might be good for them is completely dead wrong for someone else.
Exactly. Bull, did you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, the ability for them to choose is such a huge luxury. Did you see that woman's house?
Yeah.
You can choose to let God guide it in your house. You're ready for a kid. That house was kid ready. I guarantee it.
I guarantee it too.
I can guarantee it.
Yep.
It's got a room that can be converted into a nursery at a moment's notice. All they have to do is go in baby proof, and they're ready. Done.
Yep, perfect.
And
my thoughts on it are
do it without working. She can afford that. That's a luxury too.
Mm-hmm. That's
Not
right.
everyone
Sorry, I
has
didn't mean to
that
step on your
opportunity.
toes there. My thought on it is we're not snowflakes. I mean, excuse me. We're snowflakes. That's what I meant to say. We're all different. If you look at people that are identical twins, even they are different. So we're all not going to be the same. We're all not cookie cutter. It's great to give your opinion on YouTube, but you need to make sure it's your opinion. That, results may vary, as they say on some of these infomercials and things. So just be aware that, what you say can affect others because they will listen. Oh, a little glitch. Anyway, but
I lost you for a second.
Yeah, I saw that. But it's your body. You have control over your body. Nobody else does. And if you want to do birth control or not do birth control, that is something you discuss with you and your doctor, and if you want to bring your partner. You all should be involved in that. If you have a partner, I should say. Because ultimately it's going to affect the partner as well. So, yeah, that's my take on everything so far. Because I was vocal to in between. So, oh my gosh. Well, it is been 2 hours in. Shall we shill what we're doing and say our goodbyes?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's start with our guest, Coral Vegan.
Yeah, my name is Vegan-Atheist Coral. I do have a very, very small YouTube channel, and I'm also a novelist, though, and I do write. That's mostly what I do on my spare time. And I like talking about conversations that are controversial, like talking about abortion, religion, and veganism and animal activism and things like that, because I think that these conversations are super important. And that's why I choose to give my 2 cents, because I just want to encourage the world to, be better humans. I believe you guys can be better, and we should encourage everyone to be better and to consider other worldviews and perspectives and things like that. So thank you guys again for having me on. I
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
for coming.
Yes, thank you so much for
and
coming.
I did put your link into the side chat.
Sure.
So everybody, please go over there, check her site, her channel out. If you like what you see, please subscribe. Give her the love. And yep. All
Thanks
right.
for coming on.
Yes, thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Crafty, you have anything to talk about?
Yeah, real quick. I had a live stream there today, which was awesome, and
I was
Mom, you
there
were
for
there. It was great fun.
Yes, it
I
was.
have my 1,000 sub special coming up on Thursday. It's going to be at 8 p.m. BST, and Bull is
Okay.
going to be there with me. So I'm very excited with that. So come along. We'll have some fun. The next episode of Challenging Conspiracies will be out this week as well. I also have a very special episode, a very special video in a different conspiracy, and it's a woman called Gemma O'Doherty, so she's a bit of a psycho.
Yeah, we watched her the
that's
other day,
me.
didn't we?
Yeah. I get a bit triggered when it comes to Gemma. But yeah, it's going to be fun. In case you haven't seen it, the silly Shills know all about it. So yeah, thanks again for having me on. I'm here as much as I possibly can, sneaking in onto the couch. So yeah, love you guys.
We love you too. Sai, you have anything coming up?
Yeah, just the usual.
That we haven't discussed already?
Yeah, I'll have a new cute pet of the week video out this week. Last week I did BM Furball's dog Snow, so that was fun. And then I have another video I'm working on. I just recorded it last night. Again, like I said, doing dumb people of the internet, pretty much.
Well,
so that should be fun as well.
From, so,
There was plenty of content.
Yes. And Aimee, you have anything coming up in the works?
Yes, please, we do. We have some really good shows coming up next week here on the Shills. We've got, Bend is full of good stuff. We've got Crafty Keela's live stream coming up, and we've got Night coming up, and new pet things on Sai's channel. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff in your Minecraft videos and everything. I'm just so excited. There's a lot of stuff, and I'm going to have fun researching some more derp for Shills and everything. So
Derp. I love that word, derp. That's a fun word.
It is a fun word. And it's one that Matt can say. He's allowed to say that. So
when he's not on this show, of course.
Yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
He gets liberties taken when he's on the Shill shows.
Exactly. My hair curls every time.
Oh, he's so funny though. I love him. He's a good kid.
Thank you. He really is. Growing up fast.
Definitely.
Enjoy it, please. Enjoy it while you can. They're going to be different. They're going to be adults, and you're like still living with you, and like, what's happened here? But
exactly, he's going to be 15 in July, and I don't know where the time went.
I know. My youngest is gonna be 21 in a couple weeks. I'm like, but yeah. Anyway, and as for me, I have my 2 channels, Glober Mommy, or you can still get me to me with Glober Mom, and Glober Mom Plays. So I'll have a Minecraft video out tomorrow. Not sure if I'm going to do another video on my normal channel this week. That's kind of up in the air, but at least the Minecraft one will go out. So yeah, just doing the usual and being on here and other live streams. So, and in live chats to talk to everybody in chat as well. So, yeah. So, Boole, did you want to say Shill anything or?
Nah, I think you guys pretty much covered everything that I'm involved in. So other than Chipmunks Morning Wood, which I do every...
Pretty much any live stream you see on YouTube, there's Bull in the background.
Yeah.
Right, Bull?
Bull is awesome.
I try. There's a lot going on.
As we say, Bull is God on the Shills, so...
Absolutely.
we love Bull. Did you want to say anything else before we get out of here?
Nope. Other than good night,
okay.
folks.
All right.
All right. Take us home, Bull.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
We'll see you later. Good night.
Love you.